So we have covered hunters, and the exotics are locked down for that class. We've covered warlocks and their exotics, which was quite a number of them. Today, we shall cover titans, which unfortunately is not as much, as titans really didn't get that many buffs. Like even the TWAB going over the exact buffs that are being handed out to exotic armor pieces, titans only got a whopping 2 exotics that are getting a buff. However, after combing through the different things from the subclass buffs and changes and overhauls, we started to find some hidden jewels. Some exotics that we think are going to be very, very good next season. So let's get started. First up on the list is an obvious one, even though it is getting kind of a nerf. That's actually DUNEMARCHERS. DUNEMARCHERS is a movement exotic, but its linear actuator perk is borderline busted. I mean balanced. Now the reason why we say DUNEMARCHERS is getting kind of a nerf is because of course the slide nerf that's going out, which means exotics like Stompies, Transversive Steps, and even DUNEMARCHERS, which extends that slide, those negative effects that occurs when sliding will have a slightly greater effect when using these exotics. But in terms of base movement, in terms of just having a busted perk like linear actuators, and considering top and bottom tree strikers are getting a very sizable buff, both in its slam detonation radius, its slam damage fall off, and its activation costs being reduced from 21% to 18%. Listen, DUNEMARCHERS is one of the best exotics to pair for my striker titans, especially bottom tree. Run into a group of enemies, have linear actuators procced, even while in your super, you'll do massive amounts of damage. Which takes us to our next exotic on the list, Precious Scars. Fellas, Precious Scars might legitimately be the meta next season. This exotic comes with the perk Kintsugi, which states that after reviving or being revived, you gain an aura that provides an overshield to you and nearby allies. But next season, it will now also create a burst of healing and bonus recovery around you whenever you kill an enemy with a weapon whose damage type matches your subclass type. Now, yeah, you do have to jump through a couple of hoops, but if you are matching the same subclass type, this is the kind of play style that allows for your team to play super aggressive. Now, a lot is dependent on Precious Scars and how big of a burst of healing it actually grants and the radius in which it grants it. If those things are high, Precious Scars could be a top choice next season. But again, completely dependent on how much health it offers and its ease of use when utilizing with your team. Which takes us to our next exotic on the list, and I'm actually going to break this up into 3. WORMGOD CUIRASS, SYNTHOCEPS, and SEVERANCE ENCLOSURE. And the reason why I bring these exotics up is because of the melee rework. We will now be able to separate inputs based on charged and uncharged melees, meaning discharging things like our mini hammer will be easier for us to do now. And speaking of our mini hammer, the throwing hammer is actually getting a duration increase where it will last longer from 6.5 seconds to 10 seconds and a ginormous buff versus powerful PvE combatants by 50%, which is why we present these exotics to you. I know they all do something a little different. Severance Enclosure offers the perk Spherematic Trigger, where power melee final blows unleashes a damaging explosion. Also, Finishers does the same thing, which is fantastic for clearing ads, and as you can see here with the throwing hammer, it does so effectively. WORMGOD CUIRASS, arguably the beefiest melee exotic you can use, as it comes with Burning Fists, where melee kills increase melee damage for a period of time. Additional kills extends that duration and increases its effects. Guys, we've seen it before in action. Different combos. A long time ago, we were getting off 1,000,000 damage per melee hit with WORMGOD CUIRASS and the right setup. It was crazy. The problem with WORMGOD though is its ease of use. And even though a throwing hammer does make things easier because you can actually extend your melee and you don't actually have to close the gap on your enemy, just being a 5-second duration is just not enough, which actually takes us to SYNTHOCEPS. SYNTHOCEPS increases that melee lunge range with biotic enhancements, but it also has improved melee and super damage when you're surrounded. That's right, this transfers to your actual super. And we've actually done this in the past where we've just shredded through Gambit bosses with Roaring Flames ×3 and biotic enhancements. It's disgusting. But the thing about SYNTHOCEPS that has actually kept me from using it, especially in higher end PvE content where ads can pretty much almost insta-kill you, is because normally when I would go to melee, ads were close enough where I would just lunge straight to them, which would just simply result in them meleeing me back and killing me. But with the separation of melee inputs, I will now be able to take advantage of the increase in melee and super damage from biotic enhancements and that 50% increase there in throwing hammer damage. Again though guys, in terms of tiers, WORMGOD CUIRASS is still the most powerful, but it lacks ease of use. If you got the ability to get this set up, by all means, this in combination with throwing hammer, throw in some 1-2 punch is disgusting. But if you like me and you kind of want to just go for ease of use, as well as just increases there in your super damage, consider SYNTHOCEPS and biotic enhancements. And as far as Severance Enclosure goes, it's really hard to say because I've actually actually never tried Severance in high-end PvE activities. Obviously, with these ads right here, it's able to just shred through, but in high-end PvE stuff, it may not even matter. So depending on how much that explosion damage actually scales, that would be the deciding factor for me if I was to use Severance or not. Which takes us to our next exotic on this list. Guys, you saw it this past week. You saw the TWAB. Primary ammo is now infinite, which means 2 exotics are definitely on the table. One of them, ACTIUM War Rig, where it comes with auto-loading link, where it steadily reloads a portion of your equipped auto rifle or machine guns magazine from reserves. Secondly, and most importantly, our favorite exotic, Sweet Business. Now, Sweet Business pretty much allows you to just sit there and lay on the trigger. And I know it kind of got a nerf this past week in the most recent TWAB, as Bungie stated that refilling the magazine when picking up primary no longer works in a role without primary ammo. So now it's been adjusted, where it now refills the magazine on picking up special or heavy ammo instead of primary. This is a problem if you were just using Sweet Business all on its own. But with ACTIUM War Rig, that really doesn't matter. The only thing that matters is laying on the trigger and letting ACTIUM War Rig do its job. I would have still preferred some way to auto reload the weapon, but it is what it is. Regardless, with infinite ammo now, you can literally just sit there and lay on the trigger forever with Sweet Business and ACTIUM War Rig. Which takes us to our next exotic on this list that somehow miraculously avoided all of the nerfs, and that is our Yeet exotic, Falling Star. Guys, when I saw this list right here, I was so relieved because our Yeet exotic, which is one of the best exotics in the game, was not on this list. This exotic comes with the perk Glorious Charge, where it greatly increases your Thunder Crash impact damage. Also, you gain an overshield that lasts longer the further you travel before striking a target. Now, I know it doesn't give you super regeneration like these exotics did, but I was certain because of the damage output of Falling Star that we were going to see a nerf. But I think Bungie showed us mercy, and hopefully they will continue to look away from the Yeet strat, as this will still be one of the best exotics for damage inside of PvE, without a doubt. Now, granted, energy accelerant is going away, so the ability to Yah Yeet, well, we won't really have that anymore. But Yeet will still live on. And in our hearts, Yah will never die. Which takes us to our final exotic on this list. And by final, I mean I will be incredibly, and I mean incredibly surprised if this exotic is actually going to be meta. And that is ICEFALL Mantle. This exotic essentially allows you to replace your barricade ability with a personal overshield. And when you actually cast this ability, you create a burst around you that slows combatants. However, while you have this overshield, meaning it shows that shielded buff there at the bottom of your screen, you are both slowed and your barricade is not charging. Now, Bungie came out and stated that they're making changes to ICEFALL Mantle, where they removed the slower class ability recharge scaler. What I'm getting from this is that ICEFALL Mantle, while you're shielded, still won't be regenerating your barricade. Bungie still wants that to not be the case. They want you to lose your shield completely before regeneration actually begins to occur. But previously, or currently, the regeneration speed of your barricade was slower. So I'm assuming with the removal of that slower class ability recharge rate, you'll now get maximum recharge at max resilience. Is ICEFALL Mantle a good exotic? It's not bad. I just really like to be mobile, and this goes against everything that I know about Destiny. But there is some pros, considering the slide nerf. It's almost as if Bungie wants you to walk around like a bot. ICEFALL Mantle grants you an overshield to just walk around like a bot. And there's some psychological effects that occur when you come around a corner with an overshield. Even if that overshield is not even that beefy, an enemy in front of you will freak the hell out when he begins to shoot you if you have an overshield, even a slight amount of overshield. And just knowing you can tank an extra crit is enough for you to feel secure in your 1v1s. Will ICEFALL Mantle become an exotic I use? I don't know. I think the only way it would become an exotic I use is if the slide nerf is extremely noticeable. The other downsides though to ICEFALL Mantle though is that its overshield doesn't apply to your super. Even if you cast your super, you can't cast your barricade ability while in your super. Bungie's really made sure that we couldn't work around these things. But for what ICEFALL Mantle does, if anything, it's a good bait against enemies. It's psychologically effective, and if you don't mind walking around like a bot, ICEFALL Mantle is actually a pretty good play. So guys, those are my Titan exotics that I recommend going into this next sandbox. One more thing to leave you with in regards to using DUNEMARCHERS next season. I love things that stack, and Inertia Override is actually getting a sizable buff next season, where it now grants you 20% melee energy when you slide over an ammo brick, and an increase in duration from 4 seconds to 6 seconds. Again, this is a very nice buff. I use it all the time. And DUNEMARCHERS is one of the best exotics to pair with the melee ability on Middle Tree Striker. And if you're getting 20% melee energy every time you slide over an ammo brick, you will be able to rain melees on enemies like no other. So guys, try out these exotics, lock them down. Fellas and ladies, thank you all for coming and watching. And as always,
slap that like button like your mama told you right.